right. Good afternoon. We are waiting for one speaker, Mr. Sumit Nakandala of BIMSTEC. But in the interests of time management, if it's okay with you, I would like to start now. Is that all right? Because we do have to finish. We have to finish at 1600 hours. Mr. Sumit can, come in later. Now, I was just wondering, um, we have one and a half hours, that's 90 minutes. We have 5 speakers. One, two, three, four, because I'm also listed as a speaker, which is a bit strange. And Mr. Sumit, if he turns up. So there'll be 5 speakers. I think 10 to 12 minutes each should be, 10 to 12 minutes each should be okay. After about 12 minutes, I'll give a very gentle nudge if you don't mind. I will be shorter. And if you don't have a problem, then I would just like to quickly go through my PowerPoint, which is very introductory. It's very general. And then I think the others can have more time. And I would like to have at least about 20 minutes for questions, discussions, which should be, let's make it a lively session, an informal kind of a session. So, okay, I think the speaker order that we follow in this case would be, I'll go first if there's not a problem. Okay. I would suggest Selva, you go next because you're ancient, I mean, you're not ancient, but your topic is ancient, all right? So, but the historical implications of the connections, I think that would also follow a bit from mine. Then Suchandra comes in because you're still going to be relatively ancient up to early medieval, I guess. And then Radhika would be what, 16th to the 18th centuries? So, yeah. And then, if Mr. Sumit turns up by then, that would be fine because I think he's going to be talking about regional cooperation. So that would be quite contemporary, and we can end with that. So, without any more ado, I think I'd like to start off. How do I operate this? Good. What I have done for this particular conference is something very general. What I'm looking at is both the overland Silk Route. It's just an introduction to the overland Silk Route and also the maritime Silk Route. I'll be talking about cultural routes. I'll be talking a little bit about connectivities. But I'll also be talking about rather new ways, more recent ways of looking at the Silk Route and especially the maritime Silk Route. Now, the first picture, where's the pointer? পয়েন্টারটা কোথায় আছে বাবা? না, ওটা তো নেক্সট হয়ে গেল, আমি পয়েন্টারটা খুঁজছি। একটা লাল বাতি জ্বলে না পয়েন্টার যেটা, সেটা কোনটা? হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে। ওকে, no, it's coming. Okay, if you look at the first one, this is a very reasonably well-known map. It shows the maritime connections. We are not disputing here the locational centrality of India. India is certainly situated bang in the middle of the Indian Ocean. But what we are also looking at here are the various kinds of currencies in circulation up to the early medieval period. You have an Umayyad dirham on the left. You have, of course, for an earlier period, the Satavahana ship coin and cowries. Let us not forget cowries. We are only talking about cotton. But, I mean, cowries are also very much an unifying factor all along this area, right from the shores of Africa up to the shores of Thailand and into China. This is something that's generally neglected because cowries have always been seen as a rather poor commodity, quote unquote, of a currency of relatively low value transactions. Up above, this is your overland Silk Route. We also find, cultural diffusion along these routes. There is obviously Buddhism, but there is also Islam. This is something we tend to forget, and remember that there's Islam in China's west as well. Now, if you move on to the next map, this actually shows the linkages and the synergies between your overland and your maritime routes. Here we don't see so much of Africa because the routes are terminating in what is known as Arabia Felix, or well, Happy Arabia would be rather a clumsy translation. But if you come down to this map in the middle, you actually see both the maritime and the overland routes working in tandem together. We heard a lot about the giraffe, you know. And the giraffe, yeah, sure, the giraffe is sourced in Africa, but it's actually coming out of the Rasulit port of Yemen. And we know certainly that two came to Bengal and one came to Orissa. It's not yet very certain whether the same ship was carrying all three giraffes. Possibly not, because we know two giraffes arrived in Bengal at a reasonable interval, and one of them we do know was sent on by the Bengal Sultan to China. Sally Church, Teobaldo Filesi worked on this because the Chinese had a great interest in natural history, and they drew this animal. They said, what an interesting animal this is. Now, you do see the giraffe over here. So what I'm trying to argue is, we don't need to see this in terms of China's Silk Route versus India's cotton route. We are talking about many routes, many networks, all kinds of merchants, and various commodities, ideas, pilgrims, merchants, adventurers, soldiers, monks, they're all traveling these routes. So we should not see it as, oh, if this is China's, then this is our domain. And the domains are truly interconnected. And recent work also shows a lot of Indian investment in the overland Silk Route. Richard Davies, for example, in a reasonably recent book, points to Kumarajiva and Fasien working